The Ambassador Series is brought to you in part by Prairie Heart Institute, the University of Illinois at Springfield, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and through the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this event of the Ambassador Series in Springfield, Illinois, that is co-sponsored by the University of Illinois Springfield and WSEC Television in Springfield as Springfield's PBS station. This program is made possible through support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and from viewers such as you. The program is part of a series. The series in the past has included the Ambassador of Syria and the U.S. Ambassador to Ireland. In the future, we have invitations pending with ambassadors from Bulgaria, from the Czech Republic, from Korea, from Guatemala, and from Colombia. We attempt to cover the world as best we can and bring you enlightening, informative, and sometimes entertaining visits by ambassadors who always have much to say about the importance of their country and its relationship to the United States. I'm pleased to introduce to you the head table today. To my left and to your right is the guest today, who will be more formally introduced in a minute. And next to him is Chancellor Harry Berman of the University of Illinois Springfield. Please welcome our head table. We're very pleased to have you here today, and we have two special groups in our audience today. Coming from Glenwood High School is a group of seniors. They're all seniors. Most of them are taking courses in economics taught by their instructor, Ms. Tower, who is here as well. We welcome those students, and they are sponsored by Roland Machinery Company, and we appreciate that Roland Machinery Company and Earl Roland make possible a table for high school students at each event. We also have two students with us that are global studies students that are sponsored by LRS. And that is a new sponsorship, and we greatly appreciate that as well. We appreciate our students. Thank you for coming to learn. We're also very pleased to have the assistant to the ambassador, Nagali Aristanov, who is with us also as our guest today. The ambassador of Kazakhstan has had a very interesting career. Erlan Idrissov started off his career, as you might imagine, at the Moscow State Institute of International Relations, and secured his degrees there and also in the Diplomatic Academy, because you might remember that his country was actually not quite a country. It was part of the old Soviet Union until the Soviet Union broke up in the early 1990s. He became a public servant and a diplomat in behalf of his country. He's had assignments in Pakistan. He also has attended the academy, the Diplomatic Academy in the old Soviet Union. He was secretary of the Permanent Mission of Kazakhstan to the United Nations in New York in 1992 through 1995. He was the head of the American Department and ambassador at large for a couple of years following that, then became assistant to the president of Kazakhstan on international issues, later first vice minister of foreign affairs, minister of foreign affairs in 1999. He became ambassador of Kazakhstan to the United Kingdom in 2002 through 2007 and has been ambassador to the United States since September the 11th of 2007. He's married, has 3 children, and has come to travel through a good part of the United States. He is an avid, and I understand, good golfer, and is a very interesting, intriguing gentleman. I'm sure he will have much to say about Kazakhstan that you will find of great interest. I'm pleased to introduce Ambassador Idrissov.
Thank you, Ed. It's a great presentation, and I'll try to match what you promised. I will try to educate, I'll try to inform, and I'll try to entertain at the same time. I first of all thank you, the residents of Springfield, the great city of Springfield, the great city capital of the land of Lincoln. I was treated very well here. For that reason, I brought 2 nice days to you from Kazakhstan. Since I arrived yesterday, you have some sun, and I wanted to remind you or to explain to you how the climate in Kazakhstan is. We have a lot of sun, sometimes breezy, just quite good for playing golf. I was treated fantastically yesterday. I was taken, I actually can go back and boast that I know Springfield almost 100%, but because I was treated by a group of friends in the Illini Country Club, and I can understand the spirit of this city and of this land. And I had a nice dinner yesterday with a group of your compatriots, city residents, and this morning I met with your mayor, the outgoing mayor, now the alderman, and I had the great pleasure, of course, of visiting the old Capitol, standing on the stairs where President Obama announced his nomination, and then he announced the bid for Vice President Biden. And of course, I was having a great pleasure of having a tour, although short, but informative, of the Presidential Library. I'm here with you. As you can see, there are no teleprompters, and I didn't make my prepared remarks. The piece which you have on the tables will help me to dwell on what I'm going to say. Before I start, I wanted to tell you that Kazakhstan is a very dynamic country, and already I want to introduce certain amendments to the information you have on your sheets. Kazakhstan is not having great spaces, expanses of taiga. Taiga is basically in Siberia. What we have in Kazakhstan we call steppe, or we call in Kazakh dala, which you call prairies. So Kazakhstan is about prairies, and being here is absolutely dear to my heart and to any Kazakh heart, because the land here, particularly when I was landing yesterday from Chicago to Springfield, resembled very much my own land. It says that the new capital, Astana, has a population of 332,000 people. I can tell you that it is more than 700,000 people now. It further says that the per capita GDP is 7,200. It's about 10,000. I will tell you later on how we achieved that and where we started from. It says that the literacy rate is 98%. Kazakhs like to boast, and I tell you that our literacy rate is higher than the United States, and it is 99.7%. So just to be absolutely exact. On the history piece, it says that Kazakhs never were a united single nation. They migrated to where we are now today in the 13th century. I will politely and diplomatically disagree with that by saying that we existed on those lands for millennia, and I will tell you later on in short our history. We have dynamic changes in the political institutions. We are not presidential republic, we are presidential parliamentary republic. We are a growing democracy, and we are moving to a parliamentary form of rule. Therefore, the Prime Minister is not serving at the pleasure of the President, as it is written here. The Prime Minister is being nominated and appointed at the approval of the Parliament, of our Congress. Basically, to tell about Kazakhstan will take me days and days. It's very difficult to squeeze everything in 20 minutes of my presentation, but I'll try to do this, and you will see the art of the oral art of Kazakhs, which I inherited from my ancestors. Starting from the history, we are dating back to very, very prehistoric times. If you heard of the great nomadic tribes of Scythians, and then the Huns, and then the Turks, so these are our blood. These are our very proud ancestors, of which we are very proud. The most known in the Western culture is Attila the Hun, who the Huns were succeeding the great Scythian tribes. Scythians, this is the name how the ancient Greeks were called them. Locally, for example, Persians were calling them Sakas, Saka tribes, great Saka tribes, who were keeping the territory from the Yellow Sea in China down to the Black Sea. You see the expanse of their territory. Attila the Hun was the most famous among the Huns. In Western history textbook, he is not maybe the best hero, but we are very proud descendants of Attila the Hun because we believe that the great movements of people, which were encouraged by nomadic walk of life, helped shape a lot the modern history. Unless Attila the Hun completed the collapse of the rotting Roman Empire, we wouldn't have the modern picture of modern Europe, political picture of modern Europe. So in a way, we have to thank Attila the Hun for going that far to help encourage the political processes which we saw later on. In the 12th century, 13th century, in the 9th century, Arab missionaries started to come to our part of the world, and Kazakhs have taken Islam, but strong pre-Islamic beliefs have clung, and we still have a very strong presence in our mentality, in our habits and culture of pre-Islamic beliefs. They are reflected in the colors, in our national colors. If you see, the colors of our flag is a blue background with a yellow sun in the center and free-flying golden eagle under the sun. I'll explain the symbols of that. You have this on the tables. Blue represents the sky. Nomads, Kazakhs, were worshippers of nature. They believe that the forces of nature are the forces which run the world. The chief lord was residing in the skies. We called him Tengri, and we are Tengrians by our origin. So we believe that the sky is the universe, and the blue sky, the color blue, represents peace and eternity and stability. So this is the color first, number one. The second color, the biggest body in the skies, is the sun, which represents the God, the main body in the sun. Yellow sun, the golden sun, represents, it symbolizes wealth and prosperity. And free-flying golden eagle is the spirit of freedom-like nature of Kazakhs. We never would allow anyone to run ourselves. We are very peaceful, but we never allow being subordinated. So these are three symbols which come along from our history, and this is deeply in our blood even today, and it will carry on into the future. Chinggis Khan invasion followed the Islam expanse in our part of the world. As I said, Islam had to accommodate in our part of the world. Therefore, today people are surprised why Kazakhstan is not prone to any kinds of fundamentalism. And we explained that this is because Islam came and had to accommodate and adjust himself to the walk of life we had before. So prehistoric culture, prehistoric mentality very much changed the face of Islam in our part of the world, to the point so that you understand, and I see that majority of the room here are ladies, Islam couldn't cover the face of our women because nomads come from the matriarchal society. Therefore, the position and the status of women in our society is very high. To please our women here today, I say that no serious matter was decided without participation of a woman. You were the first source of advice for us to make serious decisions in our life. And this will continue into the future because it is in our blood. And Kazakh ladies, being Muslim ladies, never cover their faces. There is another good reason for that, because they are so beautiful, and we decided there is nothing to hide there. So then followed the invasion of Chinggis Khan. Chinggis Khan, Mongols, and Tatars were also nomadic tribes. They formed a powerful army, and you know the history of Chinggis Khan times. We were part of that history. Chinggis Khan en route has ruined many cultural centers in Kazakhstan. One particularly, one of the most ancient and most diverse and developed cities in the south of Kazakhstan, under the name Otrar. He completely, besieged the city. The city residents wouldn't surrender, and he conquered the city just by his famous tricks. He besieged the city for a number of months. Being not able to conquer the city, he flooded it. He carved the channels and put the water, and the whole city was flooded, and this is how the city perished. After the Chinggis Khan times came the difficult times of our relationship with the nation called Jungars, which were in the eastern part of modern, or western part of modern China. In the 17th and 18th century, they were pestering us a lot, and they were posing a serious danger to our independence. And we had to go and ask for the protection of the Russian Empire from the Russian Tsar. And this is when, in the early 17th century, Kazakhstan started to become part of the Russian Empire. This process stretched for about 3 centuries. Different Kazakh portions of Kazakh nation behaved differently in the process. There were many rebellions, there were many objections to going under the protection of the Russian Tsar, but eventually this process finished, and it finished right at the beginning of the end of the 19th century, where the entire world was already in the fire of the communism. And in the beginning of the 20th century, there was a small but very visible attempt by Kazakh liberals, educated Kazakhs of the early 20th century, to establish liberal democracy, if you like, in modern terms. But it was beginning of the 20th century. But the first government we announced, the Alash government, Alash Arda government, was in 1916, which was violently suppressed. And then we became part of the former Soviet Union. The 20th century is the history of our Soviet period. We do not want to paint it black. We paint our history as it is, including the history of Chinggis Khan, including the history of other difficult periods, including the history of the Soviet Union. We do not want to say that everything was bad there. It was part of our life. This is where our parents come from. This is where we all come from. Therefore, we do not want to just cut out a piece of history and throw it away. Life cannot be like that. Therefore, we take it in its entirety, with its bad pages, black pages, and with its bright pages. There were a number of bright pages. Education, the literacy rate of 99.7% is the legacy of the Soviet period, because Soviet education was one of the most strongest educations, particularly when it came to the fundamentals, physics and math, etc., etc. We prospered as an industrial nation because through the, and you have this in these pieces, by the way, one correction, it says that through the collectivization period, an estimated 1 million of Kazakhs perished. Actually, our estimate is 2.5 million. It's not a small mistake, right, if you count the human lives. But through the change of walk of life, forceful change of walk of life from nomadic into settled, that brought a lot of sacrifice to Kazakhstan. But that, the other side of that was the industrialization, and this is when Kazakhstan started to develop as an industrialized nation. Unfortunately, the Soviet regime has turned Kazakhstan into a land of many ugly social experiments. I started with this collectivization when we had this forceful settlement of nomadic Kazakhs, which turned then into the Stalin Gulag tragedy, Unfortunately, because of our expanses, vast territory, Kazakhstan's territory was used for a system of gulag. I'm sure you know gulag. What was that? These were the Stalin very inhuman prison camps, and Kazakhstan territory was used for those prison camps. Famous writer Solzhenitsyn wrote his book, famous book about Ivan Denisovich being in prison in Kazakhstan. The Cancer Ward was written by him also through his experience in the prison camps in Kazakhstan. These were not Kazakh prison camps, these were the prison camps of the Stalin regime. We were simply chosen as the territory. And many Kazakhs, as well as many Russians, many other groups of the former Soviet Union perished, unfortunately, in these camps. Then came the period, and many Kazakhs, I can tell you that crème de la crème of Kazakh society, about 100,000 ethnic Kazakhs, educated Kazakhs, advanced Kazakhs perished in Stalin camps. That was a serious blow, of course, on the Kazakh nation. Then came the Second World War. We call it Great Patriotic War. The world calls it Second World War. Kazakhstan's contribution and sacrifice is enormous. Very few people in the West know what was the contribution of Kazakhstan and what any stan would have to do with the Great Second World War. But we were part of the Soviet army, and unfortunately, huge chunks of population from Kazakhstan, particularly from rural areas, uneducated in those days, they were used as a gun fodder during the first initial days of the war. There is no single family in Kazakhstan which didn't suffer from the Second World War. In my family, my mother's granddad perished in Stalin camps, and my own granddad is missed in action. And we cannot even, till today, find the traces, and many families like this. Then came the period of so-called virgin lands. Again, Kazakhstan was attractive because of the vastness of land, and Khrushchev decided to turn Kazakhstan into a grain producer, and land was just used without any agricultural technologies, was used for cultivation. He has cultivated up to 30 million hectares of land. This is a huge territory. It's the size maybe of Texas, if you like. So lots of people were forcefully sent to Kazakhstan. Before that, during the Gulag period, many ethnic groups forcefully were sent to Kazakhstan. Volga Germans, Far Eastern Koreans, Baltic people, the whole bunch of Caucasian people from the Caucasus. They were all exiled to Kazakhstan because of Stalin paranoia. He was thinking that Germans were collaborators with the Nazis. He thought that Koreans were collaborators with the Japanese, etc., etc. So he suspected anyone, and he threw them away to distant places like Kazakhstan. And in fact, we have to thank Stalin for turning Kazakhstan into a sort of a dump land. But misfortunes never come alone. All these hardships produced a unique feature in Kazakhstan, which is tolerance. We are very much like the United States, a nation of more than 100 ethnic groups. You call yourselves a melting pot, we also call ourselves a melting pot. We have people of different ethnic and religious origins. Black or white or yellow, Muslim, Christian, different denominations. I told yesterday at the dinner that we have Mormons, we have Jehovah's Witnesses, we have Adventists, etc., etc. So Krishnaites, whatever. Freedom of religion and tolerance is the core of our survival and stability. And we made it, when we became independent, we made it a special point because we were so volatile and so vulnerable. We thought that without keeping a special eye on these issues, we will not be able to survive. So this was the time when the Soviet Union came to its point of collapse. And Kazakhstan was finding itself in a precarious situation because in the Soviet Union rating, Kazakhstan was somewhat down there, economically and politically. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, very few would give a serious bid for Kazakhstan because of our huge territory, because of our scarce population, because our fantastic neighbors, Russia and China, because of the great ethnic and religious mix in Kazakhstan, because we were rich in mineral resources, and everyone thought that we will be torn apart very quickly. They would give a higher bid for Ukraine, for example. They would give a higher bid for other parts of the Soviet Union, but no one would seriously think about Kazakhstan. 20 years passed, and now I turn to the modern history of Kazakhstan. Am I good in time?
Fine.
Because I forgot to warn you, we come from the oral culture, and Kazakhs usually like to talk. And you have to stop them, you know, ringing the bell or, you know, showing signs, etc., etc. But is it good with entertainment, right? I'm keeping to my promise, right? So we found ourselves at the point of independence in this situation when economy was in complete collapse. And socially, for population, it was absolutely devastating. The collapse of the Soviet Union went peacefully, but very few in the West realized how difficult it was. Can you imagine yourself waking up one morning and losing all your lifetime things, savings, habits, institutions? You wake up one morning and say, yesterday, capitalism was announced a bad thing. Tomorrow you wake up and you are said, communism is bad and capitalism is good. Go and become capitalist. Without any knowledge, without any experience, without any institution, etc., etc. And of course, population, particularly adult population, found themselves in an absolutely devastating situation when they had to think how to bring bread to the table, how to take care of their kids, not to talk about taking care of themselves. Everything which was built, their lifetime effort, their lifetime labor just was going to waste completely. This is what the situation when we found ourselves in 1991, when we declared our independence. But the government mastered its effort and came up with a robust plan of development. It was very difficult. Again, any Westerner would absolutely marvel when I say that our inflation rate was 3,000%. You simply cannot imagine what 3,000% means. Or that you don't get a salary. Not to speak about the pension. You work, you come to your office, you do routine things, and at the end of the month they say, we don't have money, we don't pay you. That was the situation. Economic institutions collapsed because it was announced that centrally planned economy is bad, it's not efficient. And they scrapped things. They said Soviet education was bad, they scrapped things. They said political institutions were bad, they scrapped things. So what is there? They ruined everything old, but nothing new came up because there was no experience, there was no capital, there was no human resource to build the new things. This was the challenge. This was the challenge of our crisis, and the global crisis of which we are now kind of being very much frustrated is nothing compared to the crisis we had to go. And I can tell you that more or less similar challenges were faced by anyone in the former Soviet Union, whether it is Ukraine. Easier was for Baltics because they joined later, much later, and they had stable institutions and historic memory of running themselves in a different political and economic environment. But the rest of the Soviet Union was in absolute precarious situation. We decided to build upon those seeming weaknesses. For example, being a melting pot. We thought that, everyone thought that it was a disaster, but we thought that this is our strength. We united people. The motto for Kazakhstan from the very first day until now, and will carry on further, is 4 simple words. Freedom, unity, stability, and prosperity. So we guide ourselves by these 4 principles, and we believe that we are doing a good job. I will give you a few figures, and then I will shut up and we'll open the floor for questions. The per capita GDP in 1991 was less than $500. Today it's $10,000. Give me any other country with such a fantastic growth. Inflation rate, I told you, was 3,000%. Today, inflation rate within single-digit figure limits, we keep the inflation between 5 and 7%. The size of the economy by itself, we are now about 200 billion size economy, and we were almost nothing when we became independent. The core of our effort is to capitalize on what we have in hand. We were rich in mineral resources, and Kazakhstan is a major producer of mineral resources. You don't mention here in this piece that we are #1 global uranium producer, which is quite important these days. 3% of global oil reserves are in Kazakhstan. Whereas our population of 16 million people is just a fraction of the global population. Overall, per capita natural wealth in Kazakhstan is one of the most high in the world. The value of the per capita natural resources in Kazakhstan is about $300,000, which is, as I said, one of the highest in the world. To give you a perspective, it's 2 times bigger than Russia, and Russia is considered to be the wonderbox of richnesses, and it's higher than in Australia. So we are enormously rich with mineral resources. And yesterday I told a famous story and joke, which I love to tell. When the Lord decided to come down on earth and give different richnesses to different people, different nations, he took a sack of richnesses and came down and started to give off. He gave coal to Poland or to Illinois, for example. I met the mayor and I learned that 60 or 70% of your energy is coal generated. I don't comment on this for the time being, but he then went to Arabs and he gave oil to Arabs. He gave wheat to the United States. He gave sheep to New Zealand and Britain, etc., etc. He came to Kazakhstan and was walking through Kazakhstan and stumbled on walking through our high mountains, and he fell down, and his sack also went down, and all the riches spilled over. His first intention was to grab it back, but then he decided, let it lie here, but I will make this country the most landlocked country in the world, which is today. Kazakhstan is the most landlocked, the largest landlocked country in the world. We have no access to any world oceans. We are equidistant to old oceans. Let me boast again on this piece. We are proud that we have the most equidistant sharks in the world. When we moved to our new capital, we built a modern aquarium there. We modeled it to the Singaporean aquarium. Have any one of you been to Singapore and you saw the aquarium there with all these moving stairs, etc., etc.? So it's a state-of-the-art aquarium, and we actually did it through a joint venture with that company which built the Singapore aquarium. And you can imagine that we brought 40 sharks into Kazakhstan, into the heart of Massland. So whenever we take tourists to this aquarium, we are proudly saying, these are the most continental sharks in the world. A few other figures. We persevere on building on this strength. We understand that if we will be dependent on oil and gas forever, that is a road to nowhere. That is a road to unsuccess. Therefore, our top priority is to bring diversity to our economy. Therefore, extracting sector, we do not lobby or promote extractive sector because it is attractive by itself. We have all the majors, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, ExxonMobil, Halliburton, Parker Drilling, all of them are flocking in Kazakhstan. On top of the BP, certain names are not popular these days, BP, Halliburton, I understand, but the reality is that they're working in Kazakhstan, they're big companies, Eni, Total, all of them are flocking in Kazakhstan. But we want to make a point that our priority, top priority is diversity. Therefore, we welcome examples like and pioneering like GE is doing, for example. GE started to sell equipment to Kazakhstan earlier on a small scale, and they grew their sales. And today we produce with GE latest generation locomotives, evolution locomotives in Kazakhstan for the bigger market of the former Soviet Union. Or we welcome the experience and the practice and policy of FedEx, for example. FedEx also turned Kazakhstan into a regional hub, and they develop, and we welcome that. From your nearabouts, we have John Deere, we have Case New Holland, we have Caterpillar. They all sail in Kazakhstan, and we encourage them to grow. Because this is about bringing benefits to you and to us. Through establishing and growing in Kazakhstan, you will increase jobs here. You will increase businesses here. This is what we do with GE. This is what we do with FedEx. This is what we are doing with John Deere. I saw the John Deere people last week. I told them that I'm coming for this PBS televised starting opportunity. They were excited, and they said that next time they will take care of me. They're headquartered in Moulin, I think, in Quad cities. And we encourage this kind of relationships because this adds to our diversity. I will tell that we persevere in making our climate attractive. We focus on economic growth. As an independent nation, we understood that we have to build everything from scratch, both building economic institutions and political institutions. We want to build, we are building a liberal politically and economically liberal society. This is our goal. Sometimes we are being criticized that we are not democratic, that we are dictatorial, etc., etc. We are absolutely at peace with these criticisms. We simply say that it's not enough to declare democracy. You have to build it. You have to live through it. I just visited the Presidential Museum, and I saw what President Lincoln had to say about democracy and how it evolved. And I saw the figures of the Civil War. You had to sacrifice more than 1 million people for the Civil War, for the ideas. Therefore, we think that in the 21st century, we don't have to go through these violent experiences, but we have to persevere and build. But it takes time. It takes time. Focusing on economy, we decided that it is a situation of a horse and a cart. We take economy as a horse, and a cart building the civil society and political institutions. So our horse is powerful now. I showed you the figures. I give you another comparisons to put in the perspective. For example, the World Bank rating puts Kazakhstan in terms of doing business as 59 out of 180 more countries, 80 plus countries. For example, Ukraine is 142, Russia is 130 something, not to speak about our neighbors. The Economic Freedom Index, for example, by Heritage Foundation, again puts Kazakhstan much higher than all our neighbors. And by the account of all external observers, Kazakhstan has produced fantastic economic results, but we are not complacent. We still believe that we have done a great job, but a lot more is to be done. This is what we are trying to do, and therefore we are going around building our partnerships. I have to tell you that the United States is a strong partner of Kazakhstan. US was the first country to recognize our independence, and this year marks the 20th anniversary of establishing diplomatic relations between Kazakhstan and the United States. On the 25th of December 1991, the United States formally recognized Kazakhstan as an independent country, although maybe having in their backs of their minds those bad beats for Kazakhstan, but still you recognize us and we persevered together. The biggest challenge was our nuclear heritage. I forgot to tell you, and this is not here, that Kazakhstan at the point of independence was number 4 in the world by nuclear strength. I told yesterday at the dinner that we had 1,400 ICBMs, the most deadly Soviet-made SS-18s and SS-20s. They were all deployed in Kazakhstan, and you guess where they were targeted? They were not targeted to Moscow, right? And we decided to scrap all of this. And we developed a plan with Senators Nunn and Lugar, and it's called Cooperative Threat Reduction Program. And we have done away completely with this very deadly nuclear heritage. So focusing on economic growth, focusing on those things, we thought that we are paving way for a stable, sustainable development of Kazakhstan overall in all aspects of life. And there is a fantastic progress. When critics say that There is no visible kind of signs of our political growth. We do not agree. Our media sector, 90% is private. It's not state-run. If you would go to Kazakhstan in 1991, 1992, 1993, and ask, can we meet with your NGOs? People would ask you what NGO means. There was no concept of NGO at all. And today we have more than 20,000 NGOs working in different fields: human rights, education, of course environment, of course gender policy, of course child protection, etc., etc. So our society is vibrant and we are growing in all respects. We tell to our critics that they make one mistake, they miss one point. They believe that we are a full-fledged democracy like Britain or the United States, although you have many problems with your own democracy yourselves. And we believe, we completely agree with what Hillary Clinton said, that democracy is not a final destination, it's a process, it's a long road along which you grow yourself. It's an eternal process. And we are in that process, and we call ourselves a fledgling democracy. We are emerging democracy. And this small difference makes a big point. Therefore, we are full of ambitions. We are a great country with a great history. Condoleezza Rice, when visited Kazakhstan and talked to our students in 2004-3, she said, we are proud of our relationship with the United States, with Kazakhstan, which has a marvelous ancient history and which has a fantastic future. We completely agree with what Condoleezza Rice said. And administration from administration, we improve our relationship. Last year, President Obama especially welcomed our president in Washington during the nuclear summit. He singled out Kazakhstan for many reasons. We were very proud that President Obama, right after winning the elections in 2008 in November, he called a number of global leaders, not all of them, but a number, and this was his choice. And Kazakhstan fell in that choice. We were very proud that he picked up the phone in November 2008 and called our president, and they had a meaningful discussion. So US is a strong partner. We are in a very important part of the world. As I said, we are neighbors to China. The longest land border in the world is not between US and Canada. It is between Kazakhstan and Russia. So we are very happy to be endowed by the Lord having such neighborhood. But being nomads open to four sides of the wind, we strike partnerships in all directions. Therefore, US and the West, European Union, are very strong partners. Economically, for example, US, as I said, is #1 investor in Kazakhstan. We attracted more than $100 billion of investments. Another, by the way, statistics, between 2003 and 2008, the most dynamically growing years, Russia attracted $43 billion of investment. Kazakhstan attracted $50 billion of investment. And you cannot compare the size of the economy of Kazakhstan and Russia. So it speaks for itself. So, to complete, and Kazakhs, when they say, I'm finishing, be sure that it is 30 minutes finishing, you know. But seriously, we are very excited about our future. I'm very happy to come in a symbolic period. Last Sunday we had the presidential election in Kazakhstan, and we are absolutely confident. The vote, the turnout was 89%. I heard that yesterday the turnout was a bit less than that. But this is a vote by the nation, by the public, for stability and sustained growth. I'm happy that I came right after President Obama has announced his bid for the next 2012 presidential election. And I'm very proud that I came right during the election day here. I congratulate you all with the election of the new mayor, Mr. Houston. I see the wisdom of your choice. You choose to go back to experience. You experimented with modernity and new things. A good mix of experience and good mix of new things will produce the best result. This is the formula for Kazakhstan, and we will hope to continue to strike and keep this important partnership with the United States, which will help us to keep that balanced formula for our sustained growth. I thank you very much for your patience, and I, of course, will be absolutely happy to answer all your questions. Thank you very much. Shall I stand here? Or?
Yes, if you can sit down for a second, but then you'll need to stand back up.
I will. No, it will be my honor to stand near you.
Yes. Ambassador, thank you so much for that enlightening and entertaining presentation. We have more questions than we can possibly deal with today. So
Did you make the right pick?
I suspect. I'm avoiding the question about golf yesterday.
Why? Why?
However, you might tell them what your handicap is.
No, Tim is a witness. We played. I can tell you that Tim is a scratch player. Tim Nikud, he is a scratch player, fantastic player. I enjoyed playing with him. I am about 15.
I'm going to combine a couple of questions because they have to do with unique things about your country. One of them is the importance or the significance of bread in your society, and the other one is a curiosity question about why not shaking hands with women in mixed company.
I don't know what bread do you mean, but if you talk about whole wheat or white bread or brown bread, we are absolutely serious about that. Kazakhstan is within top 6 global producers and exporters of grain. Like you, we produce high quality hard wheat, which has high contents of protein. It's very good for pasta products, it's very good for top quality bread. I give you another figure, sorry for bombarding you with the statistics, but, and it looks like I'm boasting, which is true. Kazakhstan is #1 in the world global export of wheat flour. So you would be surprised. How come? You wouldn't be surprised, for example, that we produce export a lot of oil, but wheat is something new. But this is a reality. Agriculture is one of the important sectors where we try to focus. Therefore, we want to partner with the United States in developing our agriculture sector. I give you one example. By the way, if you want to understand Kazakhstan's climate and weather, go to North Dakota. It's similar, complete replica. So before going to Kazakhstan, go to North Dakota. It's closer and cheaper. But we partner with North Dakotans. They have identified us themselves. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, North Dakota Trade Office opened their mission in Kazakhstan. And now we are in a number of projects. One big project is building the feedlots. We like your Angus and Hereford. And we are buying over the 5 years 80,000 cows. Up to 5,000 cows, 4,000 cows have already been airlifted from North Dakota to Kazakhstan last fall, starting from October. I forgot the name. Hereford, right, is the name for the pregnant cows. So we are smart. We are taking Hereford. Hereford. Yes, Hereford. We are taking Hereford. So we take one cow from the United States, and in the spring it turns 2 cows. You know. So. So this is how smart Kazakhs are multiplying their livestock, really. So agriculture is very important, and all sides of agriculture, including equipment and technologies. This is the most important thing, and we want to persevere on that. We are happy that you are showing the interest. I visited Nebraska, I visited Kansas. Governor Brownback, who knows our part of the world very well, he was, in his time of senatorship, he initiated the Silk Road project. Silk Road is the ancient part of our ancient history, and the Silk Road was running through Kazakhstan. So he initiated that project to promote our development, and he wants to bring the trade delegation now as the governor from Kansas to build businesses and to create jobs, and we are absolutely happy about that because this will bring benefits to both sides. As far as the second question was, I'm surprised. I told you that we are not covering the faces of our women. So I shake hands with more women in Kazakhstan than with males. You know, I prefer shaking hands with. We don't have that habit. You can go and shake hands as long as you wish with the women in Kazakhstan.
Well, now to more serious questions. I'm going to combine quite a few questions together because there seemed to be a lot of interest in ethnic groups in Afghanistan. There seemed to be an interest in questioners relative to Islamic fundamentalism. And so if I can combine all of these and pose a question, what have you done and are you doing in Kazakhstan in order to avoid some of the problems that North Africa, the Middle East, and other parts of the world have encountered?
First of all, we focus on economic growth and development. We focus on education, and we focus on addressing the real demands and concerns of people. The spread of wealth is more or less equal. Of course, it's not ideal. We have corruption. We have difference between poor and rich. But I can give you another figure. We brought down the poverty level from 46% at the point of our independence to less than 8%. Our poverty level is less than in the United States. And forgive me for this comparison. But to compare with those parts of the world which you said is not maybe fair, because situation in Kazakhstan is quite different. As I said, we ensured the growth and we ensured that people are empowered. We focus on young generation, we focus on education. We are a rare country which has a special scholarship, completely run by the state, financed by the state. 3,000 students of Kazakhstan annually go to the best universities in the world. The average per head cost of this scholarship is about $50,000. If you take the tuition, average tuition in the United States would be $25,000, right? Then you have accommodation, you have travel and everything, stipend. This comes to about $50,000. So multiply this by 3,000 folks, and you get a figure just for one line in the budget for this specific program. We completely changed the education in Kazakhstan. It is both private and public in Kazakhstan. Public university, state university, subsidized by the government, but through competition, through grants. The government has education money in terms of grants per head. Therefore, universities, why? They provide better services, they get more grants, they get more money. Therefore, we do not, like in Soviet days, give money straight to the universities. We force them to compete and come up with better services and better programs. And these young folks, for example, come back. The return rate of Kazakh students is about higher than 95%. They go and study, and the biggest intake, I'm happy to tell you, the biggest intake is the United States. We have students, more than, I think, 5,000 students studying in the United States in more than 70 universities. This is a big figure for a small nation of Kazakhstan in terms of population. I know that you have hundreds of thousands of Chinese and Indians, but we cannot compare with them in terms of population. But through that relative comparison, our rate of students is higher. And they go back to Kazakhstan. They don't choose to stay here or in UK or in Germany. And it tells that they see more opportunities in Kazakhstan than anywhere else. And they go and they take command positions in our society, whether it is public sector or private sector. We don't force them to work only for public sector. We made a mistake initially when we launched this program in 1993. The must was for them to come and work for the public sector. Then we understood that it was a mistake, and now they can go and work anywhere they want. Those who, and they're all talented. The most important thing is not the knowledge they bring. They bring elements of new culture. That's the most important thing. They lived with you, and in other societies they learned, and those habits become part of their nature, and they bring these habits to Kazakhstan. This is how we want to change Kazakhstan. We want to change Kazakhstan through generation change. We cannot forcefully turn someone think differently overnight. It's impossible. But we gradually, through education and through empowering, are raising new generation. And if you take our government, for example, our government is very young. Our prime minister is 40 years old. He speaks 4 languages: English, Arabic, Chinese, Russian, 5 languages, Chinese, Kazakh and Russian. And he is a banker. He was in the private sector. And if you take Ministry of Trade, 37, Ministry of Health, 35. The average age of our government at top position is very young compared to the rest of the world. And all these guys are coming from this, we call this scholarship Bolashak, which means in Kazakh future. So these future guys come back to Kazakhstan and take commanding positions. And they come with a new culture, and of course their work habits, their work practices are different. And this is how we want to grow. Therefore, with this turnout of during our election of 89%, this turnout tells you what the nation wants. And our population is very young. The ratio of young and old is different. Therefore, we are a growing nation, and I don't think that making those comparisons would be a fair thing. As far as the fundamentalism is concerned, as I said, we made a strong point on building and persevering on tolerance. We don't care who you are, Muslim or Christian or Jew or whatever. Unless you mingle with your religious things into politics, don't mingle. You want to worship, be a peaceful worshiper, and we don't interfere with that. We are happy if you are happy. But don't turn religion into politics. That's one requirement by the law. We cannot, by our law, create, for example, an ethnic party. We cannot create a Russian Democratic Party or a Kazakh Democratic Party. If you want to be a democratic party, be a national democratic party and take Jews, Kazakhs, Chinese, whatever, whoever wants to be a Democrat into your own party. But you cannot build your party, political party, on ethnic grounds, because this runs against our philosophy. Our philosophy is tolerance. Therefore, there is very little ground in Kazakhstan for any kinds of extremist and fundamentalist things. Of course, we are much successful than others. Our economy grew enormously. Over time, we became a very attractive country. I tell you, again, by the account of the World Bank, Kazakhstan is within top 15 countries in the world most attractive for immigration, for migration. And unfortunately, there are lots of efforts to come into Kazakhstan illegally. And with this also come different other things. And we have to remain watchful, particularly from the south. Efforts are done. Therefore, we are on guard. We do not close the country, but we have to be watchful when some dangerous things try to be penetrated into Kazakhstan. But philosophically, historically, mentally, and otherwise, Kazakhstan is not prone to any kind of these threats.
Ambassador, your remarks have been extremely informative. I wish we had more time for all of the questions that are yet pending. We'll have to invite you back another time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Ambassador Series is brought to you in part by Prairie Heart Institute, the University of Illinois at Springfield, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and through the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of this edition of the Ambassador Series, send $24.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. You may also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605. Be sure to include the program name, broadcast date, and topic.